on, guys? If you're watching this, I hope you're having a good Friday. As you know, we're making a series on how to make a game like The Binding of Isaac, and in this video I'm going to show you all the things I did to make this boss fight look like this. You can download this entire project for free in the description of the video, and yeah. Okay, so the first thing is that we have this pixelation shader. So this is the shader. I got this from Ben Cloward's channel, so if you want, you can go and check him out. But basically, I've added this pixel size to this. And if you look at this picture, like in the bottom right corner, if you drag this little draggy bar, the higher this number is, the more pixelated it is. So in the intro, there's a snippet of code that takes this and it sets it to a high number, like the highest number, and then this bar just gets dragged down in a enumerator over time, and it depixelates as you fall into the boss fight. Okay, and while you're falling into the boss fight, there's two other effects. These are applied to the global volume in your scene. So if you're using a URP project, which you are, if you've been following the series, this project is made in the URP, there should be a global volume attached to your game by default, and you can add a bunch of different post-processing effects to the global volume. So I've added something called a chromatic aberration, and basically if you change the intensity, you can see that it changes how the screen looks. So in the intro, the lights are flashing. So the actual, this directional light, the intensity is like going up and down like this. And the chromatic aberration is going up and down directly connected to the light. So when the light is high, this goes up, and when the light is low, this goes down. This actually really impacts how the output looks on like the beginning of the intro. We also have this lift gamma gain. So we're only using the lift channel of this, and we've set it to like this blue color. Now by default, this is starting at like 0. And this is way too blue, right? So we're not actually using it like this. We're using it at numbers over here for this. So it's like flickering between this. So like these numbers around here. So I'm gonna put the code up on the screen, and so we're just editing these inside of the code, and they're going along with the light. And then when it's done the intro, it sets everything back to the default. So this will actually move back to the middle, and this will move back to 1. And when it's directly in the middle, it doesn't appear to be there, but it is a little bit over, so that the entire boss fight is tinted blue, because the blue tint actually really adds a lot to it. So having a blue tint during the entire boss fight, it's very subtle, like it's just a very small amount, but it really changes how the boss fight looks. And like when you hit the boss, it's reusing the enemy damage script that we wrote in a previous video, and it flashes the entire boss white. But when we have this lift that's changing it to blue, that white flash is actually a little bit tainted blue, which matches the boss's attacks and everything like that. It really adds a lot to the way the boss fight looks, and it's a really cheap way to actually make this effect without having to do too much work. It really adds a lot to the boss fight. Okay, so for getting the variables, you can just input the light and the volume the same way you would do any other variables. You just drag them in using the inspector. But for the chromatic aberration and the lift gamma gain, you can't do that. You have to get them from the global volume. So if you try to drag them, it won't actually work. So in the start method, you can see that we're using the global volume to try to get the chromatic aberration and the lift gamma gain. You don't have to declare them like the type inside of the try get. It will automatically do it based on the type of the variable that you've already declared. So you've declared a chromatic aberration CA. So when we out to the CA, if the chromatic aberration exists, it will output it to that variable. And of course it will exist because we're doing the same thing every time. So then we're starting this delayed noise coroutine. Okay, so in the delayed noise coroutine, we're setting the lift gamma gain to be active, because we disable that because it affects the color of the entire scene. And so by default, like in the game, we don't have that activated. Like we don't just leave it running in the background the entire time. So we're activating the lift gamma gain. We're setting the value to be 1. So it's the vector for is red, green, blue, and then W, which is that bottom draggy bar. So the third value we're setting to 1, which is blue, right? So we're setting it to 100% blue, and then we're setting it to negative 6.6 F, which is just dragging that bar at the bottom a little bit to the left until it's dark. Like it adds like a dark effect to the room. So then we're playing that whoosh sound effect of him like coming up into the scene. The duration is how long the the lights are going to be flickering for. So it's only doing it for about 5 seconds at the intro of the video. The current intensity, we're setting that to DL intensity. DL stands for direct light. So we have a light in the scene, it's called a direct light, and the intensity is 1 by default. Then we're setting the target intensity to be a range from 0 to 1.5. So this means that the light will be going between 0, which is completely off, to 1.5, which is like 50% brighter than the normal lighting for the game. So like it's flickering back and forth between these numbers, and it's random. So the target intensity is going to be random to start with. The cycle time is how often this is going to change. So the you can see that during the intro is flashing back and forth between dark and bright, and you can change how long each of those like iterations lasts. And then the elapsed time and the cycle elapsed time is just used to count how long it's been since the last time. So then while the elapsed time is less than the duration, if the cycle elapsed time is greater than equal to the cycle time, then we're going to change the target intensity. So this is what actually makes it cycle. And then we're setting the direct light intensity to be a number between the current intensity and the target intensity, which is the third value in lerp is the T. So this is how far along it is. So 0 will be current intensity and 1 will be target intensity, because the lerp is just the number between 0 and 1. So we're doing the cycle elapsed time, which is how far we are into the cycle, divided by the cycle time. That way will always be a number between 0 and 1. And we're setting the chromatic aberration intensity to be the direct light intensity times 3. So it will always be way more than the actual light itself. So if the light is at like 0.2, the chromatic aberration intensity will be at 0.6. I just messed with these numbers, so there's no reasoning behind this. That's what looked good to me after messing around with this for a long time. Then we're setting the lift gamma gain value to be vector 4. And again, the blue is at the maximum, but the W value, which is the draggy bar at the very bottom, is a number between negative 0.6 and -1. So everything is going to be on the left of that bar. And remember, lerp, the third node is just the T. So it's a number between 0 and 1. And 0 is the left number and 1 would be the far right number. So because at the top we set the DL intensity to be a random between 0 and 1.5, sorry, the target intensity is the number between 0 and 1.5. The maximum number it can be is 1.5. So by dividing DL intensity by 1.5, the number will only go up to a maximum of 1, because the lerp maximum is 1. If you go over that, it will go past the number. So then we're increasing the cycle elapsed time by how long it's taken since the last frame, and then we're yield returning null. When this is done, we go into this reset light coroutine. All right, and this is the reset light coroutine. This is getting really dry, so I'm just gonna kind of gloss over this. This just sets everything back to the way that it was before the coroutine happened. The only thing that doesn't get set back is the lift value. The lift value is set to 0.8, and 1, and with a bottom draggy bar at negative 0.05. This just makes it so it's very, very slightly tinted blue. And then after you kill the boss, we change it actually back and we turn it off and set everything actually back to normal. But okay, so then I created this really simple animation. Basically, the boss just kind of flies into the scene from the bottom. This looks really cool with like all the other effects that are going on. And it's really, he's flying upward. So like he's moving up on the y-axis. And then when he gets to the top, he just rotates upwards. But then after like he gets to the very top and he rotates upward a little bit, he rotates back down. Like there's like he gets to the top, but then he moves back down a little bit. This is something that you should do pretty much for all of your animations. So anytime you have an animation, when you get to the max position of something, there should always be like a recoil, like a backwards movement to like backtrack just a little bit at least. And this really adds a lot to it. So let me just play it, hang on. So you can see like he kind of flies into the scene. And it's also kind of important as well that you turn on apply root motion. If you don't do this, the actual position of your boss will stay wherever he started. So right now he is way, way below the scene. So like if we get out of the animation and we just click on him, you can't see the values because he's animated, but he's actually like, obviously he's like significantly below the scene. So if you don't turn on root animation and you run the animation, afterwards he'll be down here. And then we have another animation that he launches forward to do his attack. And if you do that and he's down here still, it will teleport him back down here. And yeah. Okay, so back in the boss train script, under the delayed noise I enumerator, this is what makes the whole flash sheet thing happen at the beginning of the boss fight. At the bottom of this, we turn off the animator. So A is the animator. We're getting this at the very start of this. So we're setting A, which is an animator, to be the parent animator, because this script is actually attached to the bone that's inside of him. It's not actually attached directly to this. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this entire project is available for download for free in the description of the video. So you're welcome to download it, and it should just be in the state where you can mess with this yourself, I guess. But yeah, so after we're done with resetting the lights and everything is set back to normal and he's done everything, we turn off the animator, because the animator is, when the root motion is set, this controls the actual position of the boss. And we don't want it to be controlled by that anymore, because when he lunges forward to do his attack, we're not using an animation, we're actually just using code to do that. So then we start playing this smoke effect, which there's smoke coming out of the boss. Yeah, and this is the smoke that I came up with for this. So this is a video that I followed from Gabriel Aguirre Prod. I'll leave a link to that below. I get a lot of stuff from his channel. So this is just, I followed like a visual effect graph guide from him, and then I literally just put it right, like 3 copies of it just on top of my thing or whatever. So then we're starting this coroutine called do attack. So after 1 second of the smoke playing and everything settling in, he starts attacking. So this is a coroutine that just keeps repeating itself over and over again. So every 1 to 3 seconds it does this coroutine, and then when this coroutine ends, it calls itself and waits another 1 to 3 seconds, and it does itself again. So basically this just lunges forward. I'm not going to go through all the code individually. So it lunges forward, it makes this sound effect, it shoots 3 projectiles, so it's instantiating these cubes that I made. This is just like a standard cube where I've applied a graphic using Krita. I made a radial gradient, and then I multiplied the gradient by a high blue intensity to make it like kind of glow. And then I set the size to be a random between 3 and 4. So the size is not very random, it's just like slightly randomized. And then there's like a random spread, a random up and down, or a random force direction. Yeah, so it just shoots like a random attack every 1 to 3 seconds. And then these attacks, they disappear after 100 seconds. So they're all staying on the screen until you're basically done the fight. If you do leave the game running though, there has to be like a destroy time in case you just like, if you go AFK or you're invincible somehow or you fall off the screen, this won't just spawn indefinitely. 100 seconds is a really long time. You'll probably have long killed the boss by 100 seconds. But if for some reason you haven't, they'll start getting destroyed by themselves, so that you don't have like an infinity number of these little cubes that are appearing on the screen. So then in the undisable, because I have like another script called the spell script, and if you've been following the series, you should have this as well. We discussed this heavily in detail, but basically the spell script, when it collides with a unit, which this is a unit because it's inheriting from the unit class, it damages the unit, and if it does enough damage, it deletes it or destroys it, right? And this on disable, where did my boss script go? This on disabled, this actually gets called before it gets destroyed. So if you call on destroy, this won't actually play. But if you call on disable, you can play something before it actually gets disabled. So instead of connecting the 2 scripts together, whenever this gets disabled, it will run this coroutine. It's running with a coroutine manager, because when you disable a script or you destroy a script, it's not going to continue running afterwards. So we're using a coroutine manager to take a copy of the coroutine and do that coroutine, but it's running on the coroutine manager instead of this script, so that way it continues running even after this is destroyed, because this is the process of getting destroyed. That's why it's on disable. So this coroutine called die boss die is basically so there's a cube called the final cube, which is a cube in the center of the room, and it's activating this cube. So this cube is always just sitting there, but you just can't see it. So it's let me just enable it so you can see it. So this is disabled by default. It's always just sitting there, right? So, but it's not enabled. So when you kill the boss, this cube gets enabled, and then all the attacks that are in the game. So when you're attacking, like up here in the do attack, it's adding all of these attacks to a list of game objects called all attacks. Okay. So at the top here, we have this list called all attacks of game object, right? So when he's dying, it goes through the list of all the attacks and it moves all of them towards the final cube, which is the cube in the center of the room. So when the cube is within a certain distance of the final cube, which is 5, which is not very far, it will destroy the little mini cube, and it will increase the scale of the cube in the center of the room by 0.5, which is, again, it's not very big, but it adds up to a lot relatively quickly. And then it sets the material to be brighter, so it's multiplying the color by 1.2. So when you multiply a color, if the color goes over 1 in the green, red, or blue, it will actually make it glow. So it adds an intensity to it automatically, and then it's making this effect, so the electric attack effect, but each time it makes the effect, it turns the pitch up by 0.1. So each time it hits it, it's going like a higher pitch than the last effect. And then you have to yield return null, otherwise this will all happen immediately all at the same time. And then it's playing this whoosh effect. So this whoosh effect is just like the cube, after it's fully grown, gets shot at the door, which is like the portal, right? And so it makes this effect. And then when it gets to the portal, this moves it actually towards the portal. So it moves towards the portal very fast, like 150 is very, very fast. And as soon as the distance becomes less than 1, it breaks, which gets out of this. While true is just like a forever loop. This will happen indefinitely, and break will actually break out of this loop and go to the next segment. So when it gets there, it will slowly change the cube over time from the color that it was, so the very bright color, and the size will shrink. So it will shrink, and the color will, so it doesn't just disappear when it gets there, it shrinks into nothing, and while it's shrinking, the color goes away. And if the color's alpha, which is getting affected by this, is less than 0.01, then it breaks and it goes to the next section. All right, and then after this is done, it will stop the music, change the clip to this post-boss music. Now, all the music that you're hearing in this and all the music you're hearing in my game, I made this all myself. There's an application called Cakewalk. I'm not going to get too far into that because that's its own topic. Making music could be really, really involved. And so we played the post-boss music, which is like that piano-y music that you heard in the background. And then we set the pitch back to 1 because we changed the pitch above to make it go way higher. And then we play the long whoosh noise to signify the portal opening. And then we set the final cube to be inactive because it's already disappeared anyway. And we turn off the that effect that we had, like the lift, the blue lift that's on it. The effect is turned off, and then we're playing this door visual effect. I made a video on how to make the portal effect already, so if you want, you could check that out. I think it's the last video that I released. And I think that's all I did to make the boss. If you have any questions, you could definitely leave them in the comments below, or you can join my Discord. I should have a link for that in the bottom. But yeah, like I've said a couple times now, this entire project is available for free. So you're welcome to download it and mess around with it however you want to. If you guys are enjoying my content, you can like the video and subscribe to the channel and do all this stuff. And hopefully I will see you guys in the next one.